when you were recording, well, both of the albums that you've done with Rick, you must have been having to fly to LA from all kinds of places throughout your touring schedule.
I was.
Yeah. How was that on your? I mean, on your sort of health, and it must have been quite demanding flying back and forth.
Well, we scheduled it way in advance, so no, it wasn't. It was very demanding, but it's something that I wanted to do.
Yes.
I constantly going, working or being at home for a few days, then go to California and record for a few days.
Yes.
Yeah, it worked out pretty good. It worked out just fine.
Yeah.
And but then when it got down to doing voiceovers and a few little things, the tapes came back and I recorded those at Jack Clement's studio.
Oh, okay.
I recorded voiceovers.
Right.
A couple, not all of them.
How is Jack Clement these days?
Great.
Yeah?
He's in good shape.
Good. Great. The album, I think, is wonderful. It's really, really, it makes a wonderful companion piece to the first record. And very interested in the idea of the trilogy of there being a final a gospel record. Are you still planning to do that? Good.
Yeah. We haven't talked much about it lately. We've been so obsessed with this album and getting it out. We really haven't discussed the next project. Although we've talked about another part 2 of Unchained, because we recorded 30 songs.
Yes.
And I think they're all pretty good.
Was it originally intended to be a double CD or at least a longer record?
We never knew, and we never knew until we reached some point when we decided we had enough songs for whatever we were going to do.
Yes.
That we had two CDs that we were very happy with them, but if we wanted to release one first, we could do that. And it's turned out that's what we did.
Yes. Was the recording process very different from American recordings?
Yeah. With American recordings, it was just me and my guitar, and it was more, it was probably harder with American recordings.
Right.
Because it was
nothing to hide.
Focus, nothing behind. Exactly. It's scary. Yeah. Just me and my guitar. But this album was, I had more fun because I was with a bunch of people that we had fun making the music together, and it's a more musical record. And this record also encompasses 50 or more years of music. Yes. With a Jimmy Rogers song and some rockabilly and then a Dean Martin song and up
Which
through
is
the years.
Dean Martin song?
Memories are made of this.
Forgive my ignorance there. But you see, it is fascinating how many different styles of music are encompassed within the one album, and yet how well they all work together.
Well, the thing that we had to do, I had to take those songs. When we choose one like that, I had to take that song and make it my own.
Yes.
If it wasn't done in a way that I didn't feel it,
yes,
that it was right, that I was communicating it, then it was wrong. And that's one of the problems I had with the Soundgarden song.
Yes. With
Chris Cornell's song of Rusty Cage, but they came up with the arrangement Rick and the musicians did that was real comfortable for me.
Yeah.
And I think it may be one of my favorite songs to perform now.
I can believe it. It sounds fantastic. So that was Rick and Patty and the other guys just throwing around some ideas for arrangements.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wasn't there when they arranged that song.
So you came in and you heard their version
and
realized.
We talked about it. I knew basically what it was going to be.
And what about you must have heard the Beck song before you?
Yeah. I turned it down. Rick wanted me to hear it, and I listened to it. And I said, "That's not for me."
Right. So you had the same reaction.
Yeah, I had to. Well, as it wasn't for me. I knew that. But I couldn't see a way that I could do it. But they came up with the arrangement where I could see a wedge.
Have you met Beck? You did a show with him, didn't you?
Yeah, I did a show with him.
What did you make of him?
He opened.
For you,
I'll take that bottle, thank you. He opened the show for me at the Hollywood Plantagenet Theater a year or so ago, and my impression of him was, in ways he was a great hillbilly singer.
Yes.
He had that Appalachian music that, like he really felt it and loved it, and then he sang this song, Rowboat. So that's one of the songs we chose for the album.
Yeah. What happened to Addicted to Love, which I know was one of the songs that...
We never finished it.
You actually, right.
No, we never finished it. I never got it the way that I was satisfied with it, or Rick either.
Right. And which Neil Young song was it that...
But it's not in the album?
Yeah.
Pocahontas.
Pocahontas. Because I remember reading a news story which said that was going to be on the album, so...
No.
I guess it was
that was before we selected the final 14.
Right. When you went back to Mean-Eyed Cat and Country Boy, did it trigger memories for you from the Sundays?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what the sessions feel a lot like. The freedom in these sessions, like the Sundays, have that kind of loose freedom. Like, we'll finish a song and then we'll sit around and have a Coke or talk a while, and then I'll say, let's do this one, or somebody will say, what do you want to do now? So I'll say, nothing, I want to have another Coke or whatever,
Yes.
There's no clock on the wall.
No.
No pressure to do anything.
Yes.
But Country Boy, I had been doing it in concert. It wasn't anything like the original recording the way I was doing it. So we got into that, and boy, it felt good. Marty Stewart was there on guitar.
Oh, right. So
Ben Mott was on keyboard. And then Mean-Eyed Cat was a song I wrote originally 40 years ago, but I didn't finish it. And I wrote another verse about a year ago.
Right.
Well, people had been telling me I should record that again, so I did.
It sounds absolutely wonderful. It's, just as exciting as any rock and roll record that ever came out of Memphis, I think.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, really, really, really great sound. Are you hip to any of the so-called alternative country acts? I'm thinking of, young bands like the Jayhawks, who are obviously on the same label as you.
I really like the Jayhawks.
Yeah.
They're one of the ones I know about. I would say they're one of my very favorites,
Yeah.
I like their work.
I think they're great too. I mean, the reason I ask is, in a strange sort of way, you seem to have more in common now with these alternative, non-Nashville kinds of bands than you do with, the Nashville, what's actually coming out of the country mainstream.
Well, it's kind of part of that going back to the rockabilly roots with me. I was not a Nashville act and was recording in Memphis, and these feel like Memphis recordings to me in a lot of ways.
Yes.
Which is the way it should feel natural with me.
Yeah.
No, I have not turned my back on Nashville. I don't know if they did turn their back on me. Doesn't really matter. I wasn't doing anything there anyway. I was just going through the motions, but I never went down on Music Row. I lived out 20 miles northeast of town, did my own thing.
Yeah.
Went out on my own tours and did a lot of television, did a few movies, and enjoyed myself.
Yes.
But when CBS decided they would not renew my contract when it ran out in 1983, then I said, well, all right, I'll just do my thing, So, but then I got hungry to get back in the studio again, so I got to talking to Mercury Polygram,
yes.
and I re-signed with them, and we got nowhere there. They couldn't fight the. They kept talking about demographics to me, and I kept losing interest more and more, and got to making records to suit me again rather than thinking about whether they were, really the thing I should be doing. And with no outside except Jack Clement and I, or Bobby Moore, another producer, produced one album, and Earle Ball produced another one. We were doing things that we liked, you know, and since they wouldn't talk about getting serious about releasing us, we just made the music we felt like making at the time. But then I got totally, you know, totally kind of down and out with Nashville and the system there when I realized that the last album I made, they only pressed 500 copies. I didn't have a chance, you know. No, didn't have a chance even for radio play. Right. And, not even one sample to the record store. So why work at it, you know? Why spin my wheels?
Yeah.
And then along came, and I was kind of resolved that if I ever made another album, it would be to produce myself and advertise it on television and sell it over the air, whatever. But I couldn't do that. I just didn't want to do that.
No.
And then along comes Rick Rubin and says that I won't take you in the studio or in front of a microphone and you sing the songs that you want to record.
So you on Knight in Shining Armor already?
Yeah, well, I didn't believe it.
Unlikely.
I didn't believe it at first. I said, how are you going to be any different than everybody else? And he said, because we're going to get into the music and find out what is the best thing Johnny Cash can do and the most natural thing, and that's what we're going for. So that's what we finally did. We recorded all those songs alone with me and my guitar in front of a microphone. And then we went into the studio a few sessions with a few musicians and recorded some of them with instruments to see how they felt. And they didn't feel right. So we went back to the living room with just a guitar.
Yeah.
And this was a dream come true for me. It was about 25 years ago. I told Marty Robbins and somebody at Columbia Records that I wanted to do an album called Johnny Cash Late and Alone.
Late
and Alone.
Oh, right.
This is what this album turned out to be.
Okay. I thought it was just Johnny Cash Alone. That's what I'd read.
Well, for some reason I always said Late and Alone, not Johnny,
right.
not
Like
late Johnny Cash, not the late Johnny Cash, but Johnny Cash Late in the Night and Alone.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah. I was interested, I mean, just talking about Nashville and the whole kind of formulaic approach to country music there now, I was interested to read the other day that country sales had finally reached some sort of plateau, and I wondered whether, you know, it was time really there was some kind of backlash against the whole pre-packaging of all these hat acts and all the country acts. It all, you know, to someone who doesn't know that much current country music, it does all sound very, very similar. A lot of the records sound exactly the same. Do you feel it's time do you think people are finally thirsting for a country music with a bit more soul to it?
I think, I think country music is probably better than it's ever been, with more writers and more selection of songs that can be recorded. But I think there is a glut of it being recorded, overproduced, the sound, for a long time there, everything sounded the same. Now they're kind of, a few people are getting down to trying to stylize their own music instead of sounding like the same hat acts over and over. But as you say, I think country music reached its peak in sale, but I think it will, it may come down some from that over the next few years, but I think it will kind of mellow out to being real country music again. And not so much, and there'll be far fewer artists recording than there are right now.
Right.
I think,
I
think that will be good for the business, that we'll get to hear the best again that are coming out. And hopefully some of the stations now are starting to play the veterans and people my age in the business, like Haggard and George Jones gets a lot of play.
Does he?
Yeah, and so they're starting to play us again.
Right.
And some of them are.
That's good.
I don't know if that means anything really for them to play our old records, but possibly they might play a track or two off of this album because it's a real country record in a lot of ways.
Yes.
It's got a country classic by Jimmy Rogers called The One Rose. And then the Don Gibson song. You know, there's some real country things in the album.
Yeah, the I Never Picked Cotton is great.
Yeah,
it is, and a real stunner. Do you think your success with Reuben has cost you any country fans?
No, I don't care. I don't think the fans care who produces the records.
No. But,
never thought about that.
No. Well, I just wondered in terms of, you know, how possessive country fans are, and this idea of you hanging out with this long-haired Hollywood. I mean, it's almost like consorting with the devil, isn't it?
I've always hung out with long hairs. I've always hung out with people of that ilk.
Right.
You know? I'm one of the original, and I had sideburns down to my chin in '55. For a while there, I did.
Yeah.
And then I went on. I did when I started my own TV show in Nashville in '69. I had a group called The Who on as guests, and one of them, I forget which one of them said, "Thank God we got somebody on television with long hair," talking about me, you know. Although it wasn't all that long.
Right. I was interested in the experience you had in Branson. You know, that was slightly what made me think that perhaps, you know, you had crossed over from one audience to another. That he were now as this icon for a much younger audience, whereas the heartland country fans who go to Branson didn't seem to want you anymore.
You may be right, but Branson is a kind of a whole nother thing.
Right.
Like Mel Tillis, his theater is full, you know, almost every show, and that's because a year in advance his people go out and sign up these tour bus companies to bring the tour buses to Branson to see the Mel Tillis show.
Okay.
Hundreds of them.
Right.
Thousands of them. Every year. Like Mel Tillis' shows, and I'm using him as an example,
yes,
are booked almost to capacity for this time next year.
Okay.
You know, I didn't have that going for me in Branson.
Right.
We had people who came into town that weren't contacted by one of the theaters that just kind of chose which show they wanted to go to. And but most of them were people who came to town knowing what show they were going to, not knowing who else might be in town.
Right.
But these are mainly to retirees, and maybe a lot of them real old fans of mine. But the young people, you know, there were a few shows that before I quit Branson, that when my record came out, American Recordings, they would whistle and cheer and stomp their feet, and I could tell these people up there in the balcony didn't come in on a tour bus. But there weren't enough of them.
Right.
But the thing about it was that I was simply working out a contract in Branson that the whole situation for me was disappointing.
Right.
Because it's not what I wanted to do with my life.
No.
I wanted to go out and perform for people, do something new.
Yes.
And but the thing that turned out is that the young people seem to appreciate my old stuff, Folsom Prison Blues, and I Walk the Line, Ring of Fire.
Yeah.
So a lot of times I feel like I got the best of both worlds when I look out and there's half of audience full of young people and half of fans my age,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
So I didn't desert anybody, and I don't think anybody deserted me. If they like me, they like me, you know.
Yes.
Or if they don't, they don't.
Yes.
And that's all right. But Branson didn't work out for me, and I won't ever go back.
Right. Right. Is it true that you closed the House of Cash?
Yeah.
As well.
To tourists, right.
Yeah.
I don't want to be in the tourist business.
No.
Right.
That makes sense to me.
It was a collection of antiques and paraphernalia that June and I have gathered over the years, and it was very interesting to people to go through there and see it all. But we got tired of that.
Yes.
My mother died, for one thing, And she was kind of the boss there.
Oh, really?
You know, and I lost interest after she died.
Right. What, do you mind if I ask when she died?
In 91.
91, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so she was pretty much looking after her.
Yeah, right.
I see. I mean, that's one of the things really that I think other people have pointed out is that you transcend category. You are a country artist, but you're bigger than that. You're more than a country artist. You're as much a folk artist and a rock and roll artist as you are a country. I mean, you're a category unto yourself, really. And in many ways, American Recordings sounded, it almost sounded like a folk album. Did it feel a bit like that to you? Did you feel like a kind of folk singer on that record?
Yeah, right. As a matter of fact, I got a Grammy for it for Best Contemporary Folk Song Album, or Best Traditional Folk Song Album.
Right.
I never can remember which. Bob Dylan got a Grammy for one.
Yes.
Best Contemporary. No, what did he get? Best Contemporary Folk Song.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I got the Best Traditional. Well, I've always loved folk music. It's the backbone of country, or used to be.
Yes. And yet you wouldn't know that from today's country, would you?
No, it's where country came from, and I think if country ever looks again to its roots, it will be,
yes,
and draws on that tradition, that it'll be in good shape.
Yeah. Did the whole experience of American Recordings and the acclaim that came with that record and playing the vibe for him and all of that, did it remind you in any way of when Dylan was championing you in the late 60s? Because here's a younger guy coming along, and you've talked about having 2 or 3 wins in your career, and this is like maybe your 3rd win. Was what would you define as your 2nd win? Was that
the network television years?
Right, exactly.
The
so
big sales
yeah.
of the prison albums.
Which so late 60s, early 70s
Mm-hmm.
were the previous kind of peak, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like I got a 3rd chance here.
Yeah.
To maybe do it right.
Is it true that you urged Columbia not to drop Bob Dylan from its roster? Is this a story we've always heard, that you played some part in...
I didn't know they ever planned to drop it.
Apparently after the first album, there was some talk that... I mean, it's hard to believe because John Hammond believed so much in...
I was just going to say that.
Yeah.
I don't think they could get past John Hammond if they wanted to drop him.
Right.
I never heard that, I don't think.
Okay, I mean...
It may be something I've forgotten, but I don't remember that.
Okay, it's something that just seems to be repeated in pieces.
I would urge
about
any record company not to drop Bob Dylan, though.
No, well, exactly. Did you ever have any encounters with John Hammond or anyone like that?
No, I met him.
You did, yeah.
Just a couple of conversations.
Yeah.
He gave me some folk song albums, some a series of documentary recordings of American folk songs, several albums.
Yes. Do you identify with rebels like Dwight Yoakam and Steve Earle? In terms of
Those two are my favorite country singers.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dwight Yoakam definitely, and Steve Earle. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Yoakam was the one who really made the big fuss when Columbia dropped you, wasn't he? He was the one who really kicked up a storm.
Yeah, he was.
Quite right too.
He really. I didn't know him then, and he went in and really told him what he thought.
Yeah.
He's my friend.
Yeah.
And so is Steve Earle. I did a session with Steve Earle. A year ago, we did a song I wrote called "In Your Mind" for the soundtrack album of Dead Man Walking.
Dead Man Walking.
Mm-hmm. Steve Earle's a lot like me back when I was younger. He wears his clothes out from the inside.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting because he did a prison TV special didn't he, just about 2 months ago for MTV. So there are parallels.
I saw that, yeah.
Yeah. I was going to ask you how the pain is in your jaw these days, but you've already pretty much answered that.
It's pretty severe.
Really?
Yeah.
All the time, constantly?
Almost all the time, yeah.
How do you...
Except when I'm on stage.
Really?
Yeah.
That's miraculous that it just leaves you. Yeah.
Yeah.
The power of music, I guess.
Yeah, I pray for that, and it works.
Yeah.
It doesn't alter or hinder my performance.
So, I mean, it must be a struggle to have to take painkillers at the same time to be able
I
to
don't take
regulate
them. I don't
You
take
don't
them.
take them
No, I can't take them.
because
I
you
got in
find
trouble 2 or 3 times with them already, and I can't take anything. It's like an alcoholic, you know. He can't drink, and
Sure.
I can't take pain pills.
But how can you live with that pain constantly? How do you sleep?
It's after 6, 7 years, you know, you finally get to where you can handle it. Not easy. It's not easy at all.
Yeah.
Sleep, once I can get my face laid down on a soft pillow for about 10 minutes and totally relaxed, then I can go off to sleep, yeah.
Well, that's good.
Mm.
You must be very brave to,
No, I'm not very brave, because for 5 years I didn't try to take the pain. I fought it. And I had a total of 34 surgical procedures on my left jaw.
Yeah.
The steel plate in there twice, bone grafts wired together twice for 6 weeks, 3 times, and various other surgical procedures, including the nerve pulled out and cut off, which it grew back immediately after a couple of weeks, and the pain was worse than before. And so every doctor I've been to knows what to do next to relieve me of pain. I don't believe any of them. And so I'm handling it. It's my pain.
Yeah.
And so I'm not being brave either. I'm not brave at all after what I've been through. I just know how to handle it. It's not bravery.
How did the jaw break in the first place?
A dental surgeon was taking a cyst out of it, and he had to take so much bone out to get the cyst out that it broke it. It cracked it. Then it got infected. So then the hell started.
I mean, it wasn't something that could be. I mean, normally when something like that happens in America, people get sued for millions of dollars, don't they? Or was it just it was an unavoidable thing? I mean,
we never. Everybody advised me to sue, but I wouldn't do it. I don't want that.
Didn't want to get.
I don't want to do that with my life. I don't want that hassle.
Right.
These same doctors have tried everything in the world to help me since then, but couldn't.
Yeah. Well, I'm very sorry to hear that. It's a horrendous thing to be living with. I was just in terms of how punishing your schedule must be, and how hard you work. Listening to the song "I've Been Everywhere" kind of made me think about that's your life, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, it's about
done everything and been everywhere.
That's a barren. There's one town in that song I don't think I actually have been to. That's Barranquilla. I think that's in South America somewhere.
Right. But every other one.
Every other one, I've been there.
Right. I mean, but it made me want to ask you. Do you really need to tour so much? Do you need to work so hard and drive yourself so hard?
For my soul, I do.
Right.
Yeah, for my soul.
Yeah.
It's a gift. My mother always told me that any talent is a gift of God, and I always believed it. And it's not that if you don't use it, you lose it. I don't believe that, but maybe that is true too. In the long run, you would lose it. If I quit, I would just lay up in front of the television and get fat and die pretty soon. So I don't want to do that.
There seems to be a real work ethic in country music. I mean, Ernest Tubb, people who they stay on the road literally till they drop.
Yeah, well, why not?
Yeah,
why not?
Sure.
Yeah. People die in the workplace everywhere. It's a lot better, I just hope and pray I can die with my boots on. I don't, really.
Right.
I don't want to, I've been in hospital beds.
Yeah.
And I don't want to end it up there.
No.
Although, I got no control over that really, but I'll do everything I can to control it.
Do you ever get tired of I mean, rather as, Sinatra always groans when people expect him to sing Strangers in the Night or whatever. Are the songs that just, after all these years, you just think, oh, not this one again?
Absolutely not. I got over that.
Yeah.
I went through a period that I didn't want to sing those old songs again. Yeah. And I might give them 1 or 2 of them in a show. I was singing what I wanted to sing. But I finally decided that I was really cheating them and myself. And I started singing all the old ones with gusto.
Right.
and lust like I loved them. And now, there's not a song they can ask me to do that I won't try, if I know the words to it. Those songs, those songs, I Walk the Line, Folsom, Sunday Morning Coming Down, Ring of Fire, they're part of me.
Yeah.
They're an extension of me. When I get in front of that microphone, here's part of me going through that mic, to that audience.
Yeah.
And they feel it and they know it if I feel it, and they'll turn it right back to me, the appreciation. And that's what it's all about. That's what performing is all about,
yes.
is sharing and communicating.
Yes, absolutely. Just to return to the subject of the gospel album, the rumors that Jerry Lee Lewis might be involved in some way?
No, I haven't heard that.
I think there's a good quote in some interview saying you might go see Jerry Lee and get him involved or sing a song with him or something.
Not a bad idea, but it's the first time it's come up.
Right, okay. Is it true that you told Sam Phillips that you were basically a gospel singer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And in some ways, do you still regard yourself as...
Well,
certainly a big part.
I'm that too. You talked about country and folk and
yeah.
rock and roll.
Right.
I'm that too.
Yes,
Gospel music is so ingrained into my bones. I can't do a concert without singing a gospel song.
No.
It's what I was raised on. It was a thing that inspired me as a child, growing up on a cotton farm where work was drudgery and it was so hard that when I was in the field I sang all the time, and usually gospel songs, because they lifted me up above that black dirt.
Are there any songs that you would have to do on this album when you do it? Are there any particular songs that you know you're going to have to do on this gospel album?
There are two songs. There's one song that we've already got recorded with me and my guitar. A lot of them I have, 30 probably.
Okay, right.
But ones that if we do it with a band, we've already got an arrangement on Farther Along. It was Mike Campbell suggested that song to me, and he knew it, and so we sang it, worked it up. So there are others that I love so much that some Sister Rosetta Tharpe songs.
Right. Strange
Things Happening Every Day.
Right.
I've got to record that song.
Right.
Maybe Didn't It Rain, Children, and This Train Is Bound for Glory. Plus the old country gospel things like How Beautiful Heaven Must Be.
Right.
Some real country gospel thing.
I was interested to know whether you ever talked about gospel music with Elvis.
Oh yeah, it's all we talked about.
Right.
Well, that wasn't all. We talked about girls too, but
right.
we talked about gospel.
Right.
Yeah, Elvis and I, a lot of shows we would sing together in the dressing room, and invariably we go to black gospel.
Right.
Tupelo, Mississippi. That's what he heard too, and I was I was in Arkansas, about 40 miles from the Mississippi River.
Yes.
Oh, about 8 miles actually, but 40 miles to Memphis. And we knew the same songs. We grew up on the same songs. Right. And we listened to them on the radio. I don't know offhand everything from black gospel, like the ones I mentioned, to Bill Monroe.
Yes.
And Chuck Wagon Gang.
And the Blackwood brothers were very...
Yeah, right.
I mean, he was very influenced by them.
Yeah, Elvis and Carl and I would sit in the dressing room before a show and sing those Blackwood brothers gospel songs.
Together, really?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Doing like harmony stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Why did Elvis never record Get Rhythm, which I understand you wrote for him?
Yeah, I did. He asked me, Sam Phillips asked me to write Elvis a song. And I wrote Get Rhythm. And I went into the studio and put it down with two musicians, with the two I was working with. And then, before it could be released, Sam had sold Elvis's contract to RCA Victor. Right. And he wouldn't let Elvis have the song.
Oh, okay. Right.
And released it on me.
Okay. The story with the famous $1 Million Quartet is that although you were in the picture, obviously, that you actually went out shopping when They were like banging on the tube.
That is a tale that RCA or somebody got tried to get authenticated with a couple of people in Memphis. But the fact is, I mean, I guess to keep from having to deal with me on the royalties or whatever.
Right.
I don't know. I think that's what happened.
Right.
But the fact is, it was a Carl Perkins recording session.
Yes.
And I went there first. I was the first one there with Carl, and was sitting in with him or watching, you know. And Elvis walks in with his girlfriend. And so the session stopped. Elvis sat down at the piano. Then Jerry Lee Lewis comes in. And I was down at the piano all the way to the other end of the piano from that big RCA microphone. So you don't hear me. And when you do hear me, I'm singing real high.
Right.
And I was singing, I remember some songs I suggested, the Bill Monroe things I did.
How come you were singing high? It's hard to imagine.
I couldn't find my part.
Okay,
If you're playing the piano singing in your voice range, it's either too high or too low for me.
Sure. Yeah.
So that's why they're all too high for me.
Right. Okay. Well, it's good to get that cleared up. Do you think?
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Yeah. We're in the business of trying to set
Yeah, if it
records
doesn't
straight.
clear it up, it's all right, RCA.
Do you think, could you ever have been a preacher? Were you ever tempted to?
No.
No.
I think in my world of religion, you're called to preach or you don't preach, you know, called by God, ordained by God to preach. I've never been ordained by God to preach the gospel.
Right.
And never seriously considered it. It has been suggested a lot of times back through the years, but it has never been. I have a calling. It's called to perform and sing.
Yeah.
And I think the gospel song is a ministry in a way, you know, gospel music. And all it costs people is whatever the cost of the CD is.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and they don't have to support me and my monthly bills. But with donations,
Yes.
I don't, that's not my thing.
Right. Yeah, well, I was actually going to ask you about that. Before I do, I just wanted to say how beautiful that song "Spiritual" is on the new
Isn't that
album.
nice?
Oh,
I love that song.
that's a real standout.
It really is.
I couldn't believe it was written by this kid, really. Josh Hayes.
Yeah.
He can't be more than 25 years old.
Well,
It
that's
sounds
what's,
like an old.
that's what's good about it. It's pure from the heart.
Yeah.
The song.
Yeah. It's amazing performance. How do you actually? Do you mind if I ask you how you view, organized religion in this country in terms of things like the televangelists and so forth? I mean, what's your view of the kind of, it's a sort of industry really? Do you have a particular take on that?
First of all, I don't know many of them, and I've made it a point not to know many of them because that kind of thing would, if I was a preacher, that's definitely not what I would be doing. I would be preaching in a little country church somewhere,
Right.
on a regular basis, ministering to the spiritual needs of my little flock.
Yes.
And I don't think I would ever go on television if I were a preacher. Now, I'm not saying that I don't condone that, but I don't support it. The only preacher who has been on television that I like and is a friend of mine is Billy Graham.
Right. Yes.
Because I know him really well.
Yeah.
I mean, I really know him as a friend.
Yes.
We've sat together on the beach many an hour, walked on the beach, or
Yes.
sat on our porch and talked.
Yes.
And he is what he appears to be.
Yes.
And he is worldly wise, but very unworldly. And his thing has never been money. Never, ever has he thought about money. And he likes to show people the labels of his coat, they come from J.C. Penney or Walmart. And he's a friend of mine. Now, the televangelism in general, I've been very, very disappointed 2-3 times, like everybody else has.
Yeah.
I am a Christian, but I don't see that as being a Christian thing. Some of the things that go on televangelism.
Yeah. Do you ever discuss religion with people like Rick Rubin, just out of interest to you?
We, not so much religion, but yeah, I guess you would. Philosophy, religious philosophy. I have I've studied first century life, the time of Jesus and that whole period, pretty well. I had 3 years of study on the life of St. Paul and that whole period, and then I really got interested in world of religions, and especially in Judaism and Christianity. And Rick and I very often, we'll have a phone call and we'll talk business a while, then we'll talk about something that happened in 1000 BC, like King Solomon and just things about the history of the thing, and watching up through the years how it branched off and became this or that, but what the real roots are. We're kind of trying to get into that.
Yeah.
But a lot of these conversations are very personal, so I couldn't,
Sure.
in the way we both feel about things, I would never tell that. I couldn't do that.
No, absolutely. In terms of, the shall we say, the sort of self-destructive years, the 60s and so forth for you, how do you, rank yourself alongside people like Jerry Lee and George Jones? I mean, it always seems to me that you managed to keep your dark side kind of in check a bit better than they did, shall we say. The beast in me, the dark side that you talked about. That you didn't get into quite the scrapes that Jerry Lee or George or Hank Williams come to that did. That you. Oh, I beg your pardon. I'm supposed to pick my son up from school. You've never been a no-show. You don't have a string of failed marriages behind you. That although you had a difficult period, that you've kept the demons at bay. Shall we say?
I wish I had.
Right.
I wish I had. They've eaten me alive a few times.
Right.
And I've done my share of no-shows back in the 60s.
Right.
But I didn't. I don't see. I know what George Jones, Jerry Lee, and have gone through. With the some of the same problems I had. But I never was one to change wives a lot. I love the one I got now for the last 28 years. Well, we've had a good time. It's been a party.
Yeah.
Just between us, But I don't know how I see that. If that's what you're asking me, how I see that I'm different from them, I can't see that I really am.
Maybe you just haven't got some of the kind of. Well, I know you've had a few escapades in your time, but when you read the life story of Jerry Lee Lewis, I guess you kind of. One would think there, but for the grace of God, go I don't know. Yeah. I'm not asking to say anything nasty about Jerry Lee, but I mean he's a I would be scared to interview Jerry Lee Lewis, I think, and whereas I'm not scared to interview you. I mean I'm overawed, but I'm not intimidated and worried about what Jerry Lee might do to me. I think that's probably what I'm saying.
I don't think he's ever heard a reporter.
Has he not? No.
I don't think so.
Right. Okay. For a lot of people, I mean, you're a massive you're a complex and a person, and there's some apparent contradictions in the sense that you're someone who's taken stands that are very unpopular with the country community, such as championing the American Indians and so forth. I mean, then you're also somebody who's recorded songs like "Sold Out of Flagpole." So on the one hand, the patriot. On the other, someone who's been quite courageous in terms of the music he's made and the opinions that he's espoused. Do you see any? There's probably a contradiction there for you, but for some people, they might find it hard to. To reconcile those two Johnny Cashes.
Well, I guess Christopherson pretty well summed it up in the song he wrote about me. he's a walking contradiction, partly truth and partly fiction.
Right.
And Patrick Carr, in a story about me, said Johnny Cash, the Indian in the white man's camp. Maybe that's it, or maybe I'm the white man in the Indian's camp. I don't know. You know, the more interesting a life appears to, that it will appeal to me, that's what I go for.
Yes, yes.
You know,
Yeah.
I think I'm here to live it.